Daily Drum for Wednesday, November 8th. I'm Harold Fisher. We have late-breaking news tonight about the new FBI headquarters. The Washington Post is reporting that the General Services Administration has selected Greenbelt, Maryland, in Prince George's County as the site. This comes after years of wrangling between Maryland and Virginia over the new headquarters location. The 61-acre site near the Greenbelt Metro Station is in Maryland's 4th Congressional District. That's Glenn Ivey's district, the congressman. The other sites were the old Landover Mall location in Prince George's County and Springfield in Fairfax County, Virginia. Well, one day after she was confirmed as the new D.C. police chief, Pamela Smith made her first comments about crime in the district.
There are a couple of initiatives that we're looking at in the very, very near future that we're going to launch here at the Metropolitan Police Department that I think will be effective. It's been effective in other cities across the United States, and I think we're ready to do something different in that space with addressing our carjackings as well as our robberies.
Smith is the first black woman to head the agency. She takes over as violent crime soars 40%, and the city deals with 800 plus carjackings. Well, federal prosecutors say they've busted a high-end sex ring operating in Fairfax County, Virginia, and Massachusetts. 2 men from Massachusetts and 1 from California are facing charges. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston said customers included politicians, government contractors, military officers, and business executives. Well, it looks like the COVID vaccine mandate for D.C. schools is almost over. The D.C. Council voted to end it last night. They don't think it's necessary anymore and fear too many students may miss class because they don't have the required immunizations. The mayor is expected to sign the bill into law. And yes, the National Zoo's 3 giant pandas are heading to China. The zoo's most popular residents were moved by FedEx in special crates. A custom decaled Boeing jet took off from Dulles for the 19-hour flight to Shenzhou, China. The 51-year Panda Conservation Exchange Program is ending after China decided not to renew the agreement. Well, here's a look at the weather now. Mainly clear tonight with lows in the mid-40s to low 50s. Tomorrow, partly sunny skies and a definite warm-up. Temperatures should reach highs in the mid-70s to near 80. Well, coming up, Ask the Lawyers. They're answering our questions and yours. Lines are open. Give us a call, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Insight is next on WHUR and WHUT TV.
On the go and on demand, WHUR and WHUT are with you. Download the WHUR app today to get full access to shows, playlists, and our latest contests. To access WHUT on demand, download the PBS app and make Howard University Television your station. Catch up on our WHUT original productions anytime, anyplace on YouTube at WHUT TV. WHUR and WHUT, better together.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you might have noticed something a little different on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm Angie Ange, our Director of Content here at WHUT. And Monday nights at 8 p.m., we like to call it Must See DMV. All your favorite shows from all your favorite creators focus solely on what makes DC, Maryland, and Virginia so special. So set your clock, and we'll catch you at 8 p.m. right here on WHUT, Howard University Television, telling your stories on your station.
Going beyond the headlines to the deeper issues. 96.3 WHUR and HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Inside segment, where your questions and comments matter. At 202-319-7810. Join the conversation.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR, WHUT TV, Sirius XM, Channel 141, 96.3 HD2, and 98.3 FM. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. We are talking to the lawyers tonight addressing pressing legal issues that impact your lives and other issues in the headlines. My guests are attorney Deborah Boddie, legal planning and will property expert from the law office of Deborah D. Boddie. Also, attorney Marlon Griffith, owner and principal litigator with the Griffith Law Group, and criminal defense attorney Bobby Henry, of course, with the Henry legal firm. If you have a comment, if you have a question, give us a call. Lines are open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. You are certainly welcome to X me at HFisherWHUR or find me on Instagram at Harold T. Fisher. Thank you all for joining the conversation. I really appreciate it. Gentlemen.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Wake up now.
No, you switched to us.
Court is in session.
All right.
Yes, indeed. How about that? Listen, we have so many issues to talk about. And one of the first ones that I want to have you two address, and this is just such an important case. As we know, former President Trump was testifying in his civil trial in New York this week. And one of the things that was particularly fascinating to me, and I think for a lot of other people as well, is that he was allowed to, for whatever reason, to debate, to yell at, and some would say to disrespect the sitting judge. How is that even possible, Bobby? Because I know, I've been in court before for a moving violation, and we know that the only person who's higher than that judge sitting there is God. So, your thoughts about that, Bobby? Why was something like that allowed to happen?
Well, first of all, Harold, thank you very much for having us on this evening.
Sure.
With regards to President Trump's ex-President Trump, former President Trump, however you want to address him, his trial in New York, and, he has a number of trials across the country, as we well know. He has one here in Washington, some down in Georgia. But with regards to his interaction with the judge, it's unlike anything else that you will see. Because if you try that in Superior Court in D.C. here, you're going to get held in contempt. If you try it in Prince George's County, you're getting held in contempt. Now, the judge in this particular case, and judges are, they're trained and they normally do not allow someone to get up under their skin, even when there are personal attacks on them. This particular judge, he is now, because Trump's already been found guilty, he is now
liable.
Liable.
Yeah, because
that's
it's
correct.
a civil case.
That's right.
Yes.
He's found liable. And so what this judge is charged with doing without a jury is to determine how much, the dollar amount. So what this judge is doing is very savvy. He's not giving Trump any appealable issues. None. Now, when his lawyer got out of hand, Trump got out of hand, the judge spoke to his lawyers and said, listen, you got to control your client. You need to tell your client to answer the question and not present a political speech. And Trump continued to do things. He said, now, if you don't stop, I'm going to remove you from the witness stand, and I'm going to take every negative inference from your absence from this particular procedure. I think the judge is doing a masterful job.
But what I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, we have this lady justice blindfolded, holding the scales. That ideally, we are all equal under the law. Certainly, there is no precedent for a former president of the United States being on trial. But what I'm talking about, Marlon, for example, is the very basic issue regarding respect for a judge who is presiding over you. Because I know, having spent a lot of time covering court cases and having been in court myself, it was just a speeding ticket. That if I were to raise my voice at a judge, if I were to make accusations, and Bobby made a reference to what contempt is, what should happen under normal circumstances?
First of all, Lady Justice is not blind.
She's peeping underneath,
right?
from
We
underneath.
just want Lady Justice to be fair.
Yes.
But what's happening in the civil case, and it's technically not Trump, it's the Trump organization. So we're clear. I find that to be a travesty. It's something called courtroom decorum.
Right.
And it's clearly, as a witness, even witnesses have to abide by courtroom decorum. And clearly the witness, in this case, former President Trump, abided by his own rules or no rules. And the person in that courtroom that's supposed to ensure that decorum goes forward is the judge. And the judge, for whatever his reason, allowed this witness to basically be on hinge and do whatever he wanted. And quite frankly, just saying to a witness, well, if you don't, and actually saying to the witness's lawyer, control your client and control your witness. Number one, you're already giving up control, which is not a good thing to do as a judge, in my opinion. But saying, well, I'm gonna take every negative inference I can from your testimony, that's not doing anything. I mean, what the judge could have done, and one might argue should have done, is stop the testimony, stop the examination, and he could have, even in the civil, he could have held the witness in contempt. Now I understand that's a drastic thing to do, to hold a witness or anybody in contempt, but a judge has the responsibility to control his or her courtroom.
So what does that mean, contempt, for regular folk? Does that mean fine? Does it mean jail? What?
It means, Harold, all of the above. It just depends on the circumstances upon which, you could be held in contempt for not filing a pleading. You could be held in contempt for not showing up for court. You could be held in contempt for disobeying a judge's order. Any of those things. The judge could do anything from fine you $50 to, put you in jail until you decide. You may recall many, many years ago, there was a domestic case in the District of Columbia where the mother of the children would not tell the father where the children were. But yet the judge ordered her to do that, and he ordered her to jail until she told, and she never told.
Never told. Yeah, I do remember that. Thank you for that, gentlemen. I would imagine that you would not advise your clients to confront a judge from court the way the former president has, because indeed you could very well anger a judge and end up not only fined but in jail or.
Absolutely. And I just want to just make sure this point is not lost on our listening audience here. This trial is being watched, of course, across the country. And there is a presidential election coming up in 12 months. And what this judge is doing so masterfully, he's not giving former President Trump anything to campaign on. Absolutely nothing. Because he has a base of people that are out there that are just waiting for red meat. He's giving them no red meat whatsoever.
Hence the gag order.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. We are talking to the lawyers tonight. It's Ask the Lawyer, and we have a lot of issues to talk about, not only issues that are in the headlines, but also issues that are impacting your lives. Ms. Boddie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
Good
welcome to the
evening
conversation. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
This is right up your wheelhouse, and it's also very personal to me. But I think that when we're talking about these issues, this is just so absolutely important. Where what we are seeing in a lot of cases where people have loved ones who, as they say, own houses and lands, and they pass away, and there is no will. And one of the things that I have found is when there is no will, sometimes there is no way. And that it causes a great deal of consternation for family members, for loved ones. Just generally speaking, how problematic is it for someone who owns property, a nice house, land, and they pass away with and leave family members behind, and there's no will.
Well, let me first thank you for this invitation
Sure.
to be able to speak this evening. It is very problematic, and dying without a plan is a problem. There are some things that we have to do while we're living, and some of those things are very basic. For instance, we need to contact those people who have knowledge and an understanding of these areas. So, for instance, you want to know, do you need a will or a trust? Well, what's the difference between a will or a trust? I think most people are very comfortable with a will, but the will only comes into play upon death. Well, a trust is a more sophisticated way of creating a legacy or planning your succession. And a trust becomes active right away. Ideally, what you want to do is to move most of your assets into a trust so that the trust now controls the assets that you own. You, as the settler of the trust or the creator of the trust, you still control it as the trustee, but they are now shifted from Harold Fisher, the individual, to the Harold Fisher Trust, creating a much better way and a much more efficient way to dispose of assets.
Well, and I understand that, but I need to get to some really foundational issues, because let's be honest, I would imagine that you've come across a great many clients who have neither trust nor will.
Correct.
And I think that, and the reality is that a great many people, people of color, don't have wills. I mean, they most certainly don't have trust, much less a will. So if somebody passes away and then all of a sudden you've got all of this stuff, great big old house, whole bunch of land, couple of cars, motorcycle, cat, dog, all of that stuff, and there is no will, what does that mean? What happens? What have you seen in dealing with clients who come to you with the OMG? What am I going to do now?
Well, first of all, depending on the jurisdiction that you died in, the property will be distributed according to what we call the intestate laws. And intestate is just a fancy way of saying that you died without a will. So in the District of Columbia, if you're married, it goes to your spouse. If there's no spouse, to your children. If no children, parents, no parents, siblings, and on down the line. And the court will determine, or the laws will determine what will happen. Let's take a decision that was made just here in July of 2023. And this is the case of our dear sister, Aretha Franklin. Now, she died in 2018 with an estate valued at over $80 million. And so at the heart of the dispute that was going on was two wills. And in fact, one of the wills was a handwritten will. Handwritten will is what we call in the District of Columbia a holographic will. Holographic wills are not, I repeat, are not recognized in the District of Columbia. So you can sit at your dining room table and write out a will and think that you have covered all of your bases, but you have not, because those are not recognized. And so what happened here, with Aretha Franklin is that one will was found under a couch cushion and another one was found in a locked cabinet. Well, obviously this is somebody who, we're very fond of and we love a lot, but she failed to plan. She failed to have a plan in place. And so, after 5 years of litigation, her sons were all fighting against each other. July of this year, the court ruled that the will that was found under the cushion is the will that will govern.
Yeah.
So if you don't have one, it is the law that will govern. And again, it is based entirely on your relationship to the decedent. Some people died believing that they have been divorced. We've seen that. And maybe they've been separated for 30 years, but there was no divorce. That spouse gets it all. Well, in D.C., they would have to share with any children. But again, you know, it's a failure to plan. And we see it a lot. We see it a lot.
You know, Bobby, you're kind of nodding your head about that plan, the failure to plan thing.
Correct. If you fail to plan, you're actually planning to fail. I just want to repeat one of the words that was mentioned, and that's it's problematic. It isn't problematic. What happens is whatever you desired, that's the problem. You're not going to get it. Now you're gone on. If you haven't planned, if you have not made a will, simply what's going to happen, we're just going to apply the law. That's it. The law already describes what's going to happen to your property, who's going to get what. In the state of Maryland, if you die without a will, you're married, your wife or your spouse is going to get the first $40,000 of your estate. Then the next monies are going to go to pay for your last arrangements. Then the next monies are going to pay for the lawyer. Then the fourth money is going to pay for any claims. And then the fifth money is going to be divided. 50% to the spouse, and then 50% to whatever remaining children there are. That's the way it's going to go. Now, if there are no children, if there's no spouse, if you apply what we call the consanguinity chart, which tells you what relations people are. Now, I've gone all the way down to second and third cousins to find someone to give the properties to. But I think the moral of what you're trying to get at here, Harold, is that we need to prepare.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, in the African American community, we think we're going to live forever.
We're not.
Forever, and we're not. And so, consequently, we don't like to deal with anything that relates to death. But the more you learn about it, it's a fear of the unknown. That's all it is. But when you seek competent legal counsel, it puts you at ease, and it shows you that you can plan what's going to happen.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the other things, Deborah, that I did want to get you to touch on, and we may have to pick that back up after the break in just a few minutes. But at least, you know, one of the issues that we are starting to see is that probate cases where families are losing homes because of the death of the owner. Can you briefly speak on that? You know, and that's we've seen gentrifiers moving in and taking homes that have been in traditionally black communities and the like, but also people who have not paid taxes, the whole bit. Kind of talk to me briefly about that before the break.
Sure. And Harold, I will argue with you on this one point, and that is that gentrifiers are taking homes. I think, again, as Bobby also mentioned, it's about a proper plan. It's about a proper plan. So one of the things that are happening with regard to homes where people have died and maybe they have a reverse mortgage. And so we're finding this to be very common. Reverse mortgages are designed to help people pull out equity from their home while they're living and not have to pay a monthly mortgage. Well, that's fine for people who really need a reverse mortgage and need to tap into their equity.
Hold that point,
However,
Deborah. And I'm sorry to cut you off. I want you not to forget your point, but I do have to take a brief break. And if you're on the phone, that includes Monique calling from Maryland and Lisa calling from Maryland. Stay with us. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM Channel 141 and WHUT TV. I'm Harold Fisher. John Mons is next with the original Quiet Storm on WHUR. We'll be back with this conversation in about a minute.
On the go and on demand, WHUR and WHUT are with you. Download the WHUR app today to get full access to shows, playlists, and our latest contests. To access WHUT on demand, download the PBS app and make Howard University Television your station. Catch up on our WHUT original productions anytime, anyplace on YouTube at WHUT TV. WHUR and WHUT, better together.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you might have noticed something a little different on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm Angie Ange, our Director of Content here at WHUT. And Monday nights at 8 p.m., we like to call it Must See DMV. All your favorite shows from all your favorite creators, focused solely on what makes DC, Maryland, and Virginia so special. So set your clock, and we'll catch you at 8 p.m. right here on WHUT, Howard University Television, telling your stories on your station.
Welcome back to The Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141 and WHUT TV. I'm Harold Fisher. This is Ask the Lawyer. My guests are attorney Deborah Boddie, legal and planning and will expert. Also from the law office of Deborah D. Boddie, attorney Marlon Griffith, owner and principal litigator with the Griffith Law Group, and criminal defense attorney Bobby Henry. He, of course, is with the Henry legal firm. Lines are open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Before the break, we were talking to Deborah about how to prevent your family from losing a home after the owner passes away. Deborah, please continue your thoughts on that.
Thank you. So
Sure.
if I can just finish up my thought
Yeah.
with regard to reverse mortgages. So reverse mortgages, again, are a great tool, but upon the death of the owner, you have, according to your agreement with the mortgage company, first you have 6 months in order to try to get the affairs together. And there are times when they will extend it beyond 6 months to about a year. But in any event, you have to do one or two things. You either have to pay off that mortgage or you have to sell the property. Now, the average home in the District of Columbia, I'm also a real estate broker as well. And so, from that perspective, the average home in the District of Columbia is around $650. So if someone has tapped out a lot of the equity out of their home, then the family members who are left behind now have to come up with that balance. Let's say they tapped out $500,000. So now the children who are left behind, or the spouse, and not the spouse, but the children, have to now come up with $500,000. Well, that's not always an option. And because that's not an option, and there may be one or more people who will inherit, they now have to figure out what to do. So typically the property is sold, or frequently the property is sold.
Yeah.
Now, properties are also being lost to tax sales.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And so if I may, I just want to say something about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Once a mortgage has been paid off, now the taxes have to be paid directly. Prior to that, the mortgage company would take a little piece of it every month and would put it towards the taxes and insurance. But once the mortgage is paid off, which is usually the case after about 30 years, and for most of our parents, the taxes have to be paid directly. Well, if those taxes aren't paid, then the city will begin to assess a tax bill. And before you know it, the tax bill is such that it is difficult to pay. Now, I have this one case wherein the family did not pay the life insurance. The homeowner's insurance. The property caught fire.
Oh, my goodness.
Unfortunately, one of the parents died in the fire, and two of the siblings were injured. Now, they have a burned-out property in a very expensive area of the city, and they have no way of fixing it, no way of repairing it.
Yeah, a lot to think about. And again, all of this goes back to what we were talking about earlier is making sure, whether it's wills, trusts, making sure all of your ducks are in a row, and something that people have to pay attention to, because if they don't, you could end up, as Deborah was just sharing with us, in a very difficult situation because you just don't know. I need to go to the phone lines, 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Monique, calling from Maryland. Thanks for hanging on. Monique, what's on your mind?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I wanted to ask a question about a front foot benefit, oftentimes referred to as a deferred water and sewer utility. Is it enforceable if it has not been filed with Maryland Land Records?
Okay, what is? Forgive me because I didn't get that question, Bobby. I think you did hear that. What is she asking?
She's asking about the front foot benefit, and she's saying that it's normally a water and sewer charge. And I believe the end of your question was, is that enforceable if it has not been filed?
Correct. Is it enforceable if it has not been filed by Maryland Land Records?
It should be filed in the records. There is an easement that should have gone on there. So are you talking about the easement portion of it, or are you talking about the actual lien from the front foot benefit? Because if the lien has not been filed, then it can still be enforceable, but it's the order of precedent.
So let me stop you for those of us in this room who got their law degree from a Cracker Jack box. What did you just say? and Monique, what did you just say? Because you got to break it on down.
We can
for
break
me.
that all the way down.
Break it all the way down.
All the
please.
way down. Liens are nothing but to say you owe someone something. Normally, when you buy a house, there's a lien for the mortgage. Okay, surrounding your house, there's usually utilities that are running in. You know that little strip of grass that runs between the sidewalk and the street?
Yes.
That's typically an area where there are easements. And
easement is?
That's right. And an easement is a right for the utility company or some other entity to come onto that property and to do certain things. Now, they have to file notice of that. So they they have to create that easement, that right. And it's filed in court, in the land records. Now, if it is not filed in court with the land records in time, and say they wait 2 or 3 years, well, then somebody else may come up and they may lien that particular piece of land. Now, theirs would be superior to any other easement, whether it's a front foot benefit, whether it's a utility easement, or what have you. So it goes by your order of precedence. So it's like having one mortgage. You've heard of people taking out a second mortgage? Well, the second mortgage can't trump the first mortgage because the first mortgage was there what? First. You may have a second or a third.
Say first in line, first in right.
That is correct. And that's exactly what happens with the front foot benefit if it hasn't been filed, because all they'll do if they learn that it wasn't filed, they'll go file it.
Okay. Monique, I hope that helps you.
Yes, and I'm hoping the attorneys will also leave their contact information.
Yeah, the information the information will be posted on our website on WHUR.com under Ask the Lawyer. I will be posting that after 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, Monique, after this conversation with you, I will be taking the bar exam. So thank you. Thank you so much for your phone call. 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Dan calling from Maryland. Dan, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Thank you very much. I will be moving my mother-in-law in her close to 80s from Pennsylvania to Maryland for health reasons very soon. And so what do I need to be asking? Transferring from her from another state into this state. She's got limited amount of money, but nevertheless, what should I be thinking about? Thank you.
Deborah, any thoughts about that?
Yes, and I am so glad you asked this question. because this gives me an opportunity to talk about things that we should be doing outside of a will, right? Because the will is for when you die, but there's so many things that should be done prior to death. One of the first things is a medical power of attorney. This is a document or tool that can be used to help you navigate your mother's health care, where she's going to live, what kind of treatment she'll get from her doctors. And so you want to have a medical power of attorney. It can be as detailed as she would like. I mean, obviously, you would be the one being appointed as her agent, but she would have to be the one to actually set it up. So one of the first things I would ask is, does your mother still have capacity? Capacity and competence are two different things. And so capacity is, can she receive and evaluate information such that she can make her own decisions? So if she has capacity, then she can have these documents prepared, making you or whoever she chooses her agent. The other thing that you want to look at is a financial power of attorney. A medical power of attorney won't do what a financial power of attorney will do, and vice versa. So the financial power of attorney will allow you to, for instance, prepare her taxes for 2023 and to submit those to the IRS, to go to the bank, to even change beneficiaries if that's something that she wants to do. So I think that's a very good question, and I think you're very smart to be looking at that now and thinking ahead.
Okay, Dan, thank you so much for your phone call. I want to move on, Leon. We're going to talk to you from Maryland in just a bit, but I do want to move on, and I don't think you have to be an expert in this particular issue, but I am interested in hearing your opinions about this. As we saw, this made the headlines just yesterday, where a former Montgomery County public school teacher is accused of having sex with a student when that student was 14 years old. That teacher is a woman, and the student is male. She was 22 years old. Melissa Curtis is her name. This allegedly happened back in 2015. She was arrested, and we still don't know what her bond status is. But one of the things that certainly has been concerning about this, and maybe I'll have Deborah comment on this first. She has not been convicted, obviously, but some of the comments about that we've seen on social media are in reference to why this person is only coming forth now, some 8 years later. We don't know what impact, if indeed this indeed happened. We don't know what kind of psychological impact this has had on him. But, the bottom line is that if this were a man who had committed these kinds of crimes and were convicted of such, he would be under the jail if the student were male or female. And the reason I bring this up, because, and here's my law and order part, because there is case law regarding this, a very high profile case that happened also in 2015 in Delaware. Molly Shattuck was convicted of third-degree rape, unlawful sexual contact with the minor, giving alcohol to a minor who was 15 years old. She pled guilty and was sentenced to 48 weekends in jail. Deborah, I'll start with you. We know that whether it's third-degree rape, unlawful sexual contact, again, if this were a man in the Shattuck case, and the 15-year-old was a girl, there wouldn't have been 48 non-consecutive weekends, I might add, in jail. He would have been in prison. What's going on here, Deborah? Your thoughts about that?
Well, let me first, disclaim my comments by saying I'm not a criminal attorney.
Right.
I am a mother of a 45-year-old daughter and a 8-year-old grandson and a 21-year-old granddaughter. This is just wrong. It's wrong. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter who the perpetrator is. We send our children to school for education and protection. This is just wrong. Any child who has been a victim of this kind of activity would most likely have some long-standing issues as a result. So I would say it doesn't matter the sex of the perpetrator, and I think that, whether man or woman, the teacher, they should all be treated harshly and severely for this kind of activity.
Yeah. Marlon, your thoughts about this?
Well, I am not going to rush to judgment. I don't know enough about the details of this case. I don't think it's going to turn on whether the quote-unquote perpetrator is a man or woman. I mean, obviously, the alleged victim is a minor at the time, so legally they cannot consent to having sex with an adult. But I think the one thing we do in society that we shouldn't do is when someone is accused, and depending on the type of accusation, we rush to that judgment and we say they should be put onto the jail, right? Because of the type of the accusation. And we don't know anything about what the case is about. We don't know anything about what the evidence is. And a lot of people's lives have been ruined because they've been accused of such things. And then when months go by or a year go by and the case goes away, no one reports, oh, that case was thrown out or the case goes away, but that person's life has still been ruined. Mm-hmm. Because we are also so focused on what the accusation is. Now, accusation is proven to be true if a person is convicted, let it be what it is. But I just think we just have to be careful when we're so quick without the evidence and to rush to judgment.
And to your point, in this particular case, as local as this story is, this story has become international news. People Magazine is reporting on it. Newsweek is reporting on it. The accused, a lot of the comments have come in because she is considered attractive, and that also has bolstered this this media attention. But whether she's attractive or not, even going back to the Molly Shattuck case back in 2015, Bobby, when it comes to and this did happen. This was not an accusation. She did plead, in addition to paying restitution to the family and everything else. Is there a double standard when it comes to women who are accused of these kinds of crimes?
I don't believe so anymore. In no matter what area of the law that you have, there are cases that are on the fringe. Like you mentioned, the Molly Shatner case. Shattuck, that case. Well, I was just reading a case this week out in Wisconsin where the perpetrator was a 75-year-old teacher. She was just sentenced to 10 years for having an affair, a sexual encounter on numerous occasions with a 14-year-old. And so, you look at that case and you say, wow, compare that to the Shattuck case. They're just night and day. And that reinforces the points that were made earlier. And you have to know the facts. You have to know the facts surrounding the case. In the state of Maryland, for instance, with the teacher who was 22 at the time, look at her charges. She was charged with third-degree sex offense and fourth-degree sex offense. Third-degree sex offense, if convicted, that's 10 years. Mm-hmm. If she gets convicted on the On the fourth degree sex offense, that's less time. But, the court is going to take into consideration all the factors. The majority of these cases actually don't go to trial. They don't go to trial.
As in the Shattuck case, she pled.
Absolutely. And because you plead, the court takes that into consideration. Why? Because you are acknowledging responsibility for your acts, but then the court has to do something because it has to send a message to society, and they also have to protect society from someone like yourself who commits, not you, Harold, but someone like the Molly Shattuck of the world. You have to protect 14-year-olds from them. It's interesting that all of these people are 14 years old. I'll just say this as a quick aside, and that is the number one armed carjackers in the DMV are 14-year-olds.
Age of consent in Maryland is 16. 16. And I think that's really the other point, that even if an alleged victim voluntarily participated, if that alleged victim is under the age of 16, the law says that they still cannot consent.
That's correct.
You were about to say something, Deborah. I'm sorry, I didn't let you speak.
No. I was actually agreeing with Attorney Griffin, is that you do have to have all of the evidence in order to form a cogent opinion about this. But again, I am stuck on the point that we have a minor who is being who an adult is engaging in sexual conduct. The fact that they're a minor, I think for me, that closes the door to anything else.
Yeah.
They may have consented, but it really closes the door because they are a minor.
I respectfully disagree. It doesn't close the door because, as males, you see this all the time, and actually women, if they agree with it. There are some young ladies out here that will be 14 years old and look like they're 21 or 25. And I understand what she's going to say, but having tried one of these cases, I do understand what the court takes into consideration. And when you get these perpetrators, and again, it could be cases that are on the fringe, but when you get these young women, some parents allow their children to act and dress and conduct themselves a lot older than they actually look. Unfortunately, it is still a crime. The gentleman still got charged. However, the charge was reduced from third degree to fourth degree. That is a huge difference. Why is that? Because at fourth degree, you're not required to report as a sexual offender. So if you are in fact 22 years old, the girl is 15 years old, you don't spend the rest of your life suffering from that mistake because you were lulled into that. And clearly, the judge agreed that this gentleman was lulled into that by the 15-year-old.
Let me just say that under the circumstances under which that I don't believe, Bobby, that would be a valid argument is if you are a teacher and the victim is a student.
The law separates that, Harold. It does.
Yeah, and exactly. I don't care how tall she is, how she's built, or how she's dressed. If I'm a teacher and you are a middle school student,
hands off.
You already know.
Hands off.
You already, hands off. Yeah, you hands off. Yeah, I don't care.
And can I just say this one thing?
Sure.
Appearance, whether it's dress, whether it's attitude, or whatever it is. That is not an invitation or a license to unwanted sexual conduct.
Yeah.
It's consent. It's consensual. It was never a question about it being unwanted.
Well, no.
Attorney Henry, I agree with you with regard to the consent, but I'm just saying I just want to address some other statements that have been made, that whatever a woman wears, however she presents, no is no and yes is yes.
Yeah.
And so none of those things are licenses to unwanted conduct.
No. This is not someone being preyed upon. These are individuals that are going out looking for this. But then once they got quote unquote caught, 9 months later, they had to confess and come forward who it was.
And I will also say in allegedly in this most recent case, again, this was a teacher and this was a student. In the Molly Shattuck case, the victim was a friend of her 15-year-old son. They went to high school together. So again, obviously she pled because she did not get a pass, and she did have to register as a sex offender. And the reason I bring up this old case is just for context. I do want to get back to the phone lines. Leon, I think you have another question for Deborah. Go right ahead, Leon.
Hey, Carl, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing just fine. I need you to get closer to the phone, please.
I'm here now.
There we go.
Now? All right, okay. Thanks for taking my call first.
Sure.
And I was calling about the trust. The young lady talk about the trust tonight.
Trust. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a power of attorney. I have a will. Would be advisable for me to get a trust also, because I'm 73 years old. I have a business and property and all that. But I don't understand the trust.
Real quick, Deborah, your thoughts about what Leon is asking.
Yes.
There it is.
Okay.
There you go, Leon.
Who said lawyers can't be short? Thank you, Deborah.
So you do need a trust, Leon, especially in light of the fact that you have a business, you have a home. It just makes for a more orderly transition of your business. And by the way, for your business, you also need a succession plan. Who's going to run that business when you're no longer able to, or when you're no longer here? How does it transfer? Does it end with you? And Harold, I would implore you to have another session like this on legacy planning, because Leon has brought to light just one of those things that we have begun to talk about more. It's what will your legacy be?
Yeah.
And what will happen once you're no longer here? So the answer is yes.
There you go, Leon.
Okay, thank you.
Short and sweet. Another case, and we're down on time, and this is another criminal case that is unfortunately very shocking. This came to light over the weekend. A U.S. Park police officer is accused of involuntary manslaughter in the shooting of one of his colleagues. The Fairfax County Police are reporting that he was drinking and dry firing a handgun, not a service pistol, but a handgun that he owned, thinking that it was unloaded, and he shot and killed his colleague. Terribly, terribly unfortunate. And there's so many places that we can go with this. Obviously, we know, that alcohol and firearms do not mix. I've taken a gun safety class. Every time you pick it up and put your hand on it, just because you think it's unloaded, you still have to check the magazine. But again, just your thoughts, about this, and because it seems to me that this young man's life is essentially over. Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's sad you have loss of life.
Yeah.
So one young man's life is definitely over. And then you have the sadness of another young man who clearly, and even the state sees it this way, the Commonwealth, being charged of involuntary manslaughter, that he did not intend to harm or kill his friend or his colleague. That said, though, as you articulated, Harold, the way he handled the weapon, his condition based on the allegations, is conditioned being maybe under the influence of alcohol, using the weapon apparently in some type of game or whatever they may have been doing. The law would find that to be reckless, at minimally negligent, but potentially reckless, which will then define or what the level of charge he will be facing, whether it's involuntary manslaughter or maybe I'm not sure if Commonwealth have a negligent manslaughter type of thing. I don't think it will go beyond involuntary manslaughter as a charge, but that's what's taken into account. So it wasn't a premeditation. He didn't intend to do it, at least based on what they reported. It's just it potentially would be viewed as very reckless behavior.
Yeah.
But at minimum, negligent behavior.
Bobby?
Absolutely. The other side, though, that people don't think about a lot of times, Harold, and that is the civil side of it. Now that there's the criminal side, now most of the savvy attorneys now are turning around and suing the families of the decedent, now turning around and suing the actual perpetrator, because the standard is a lot lower. On the criminal side, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. And the standard for a civil verdict is a lot less.
Yeah. Finally tonight, I only have about 2 more minutes, but I really want to get to this one. And this is just a free-for-all. Whoever wants to jump in. Class action lawsuits. If you get a card that says that you have the option to be a party to a class action lawsuit because something that you purchased isn't working, and you may not even know that whatever you purchase or stock that you've invested in, and there may be a lawsuit regarding that. Are they worth it? Should you get in?
I mean, should
you be a party to the?
Do you agree to be a party to the class action?
Yes.
Well, I think one of the questions you ask yourself is, if you don't become a party to the class action, are you going to sue yourself? Because the basis behind the class action is that multiple people have a similar or a claim against a particular entity, right? But your claim may be only worth $100, for example. You're not going to sue a big, large company for $100. But if you have 100,000 people who have been treated the same way, now really what you want is you want the company to be held in account for what they did, and you want the company to stop doing what they did. And sometimes the only way you can get a company to do that is to do it in a class action format, because each individual litigant, the amount in controversy may be way too small. Yeah. So yes, you're right. You might only get a $50 check when the day is done, but it might be 1 million people getting a $50 check. But the reality of it is, the law firm or the lawyers who are doing the class action, they're the ones who make the money.
Oh, there you
go. But I mean, that's true.
Yeah. That's
true. But that's just the reality of it.
I'll take $50 and put it in my gas tank. Deborah, Marlon, Bobby, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you for having us.
And finally tonight, a little advice for anyone who owns, as they say, houses and lands. The day after you buy anything of significant value that you plan to keep and want to keep in the family, you need to think about drafting a will or trust. Wills are not just for older people, they are for everyone who owns something of value. Don't think you're too young for a will, because death is going to come to all of us, and we don't know when. A will means your final wishes will be carried out after you're gone, and it'll save a lot of headaches and heartaches for loved ones. Think about that. That's the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, November 8th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.